Leo, my radiant soul, listen closely. This is not just another horoscope. What I'm about to tell you could change the way you see someone very close to you. This isn't a warning for the future because the danger isn't coming. It's already here. And she's standing closer than you think. If you've been feeling drained lately, mentally foggy, uncertain about your decisions, or strangely anxious when you're around a certain woman, then I invite you to stay right here. There's something important your intuition has been trying to show you, and today, we're going to give it a voice. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, where nothing, and I mean nothing, is ever a coincidence. If you've stumbled across this video, Leo, it's because your soul is ready to face the truth. The universe doesn't send warnings to the unprepared. It sends signs to the brave, and Leo, you were born to face the fire. There's a woman around you or entering your space whose energy may appear supportive, kind, even affectionate. She might laugh with you, share with you, compliment you. But deep down, you've already felt it. Something's off. There's a subtle pull that leaves you feeling smaller, less confident, a little more confused after every conversation. She may go by a name that starts with the letter S. If someone popped into your mind just now, don't brush it off. That's not paranoia, that's your higher self speaking. You see, Leo, you're not just a star in the sky. You are ruled by the sun itself, bold, generous, magnetic. But people who live in the shadows often feel threatened by those who shine too brightly. Instead of rising into their own light, they try to dim yours. And they'll do it gently, with suggestions, with concerns, with little jokes that sting more than they should. This woman's presence may already be affecting your finances, your confidence, your mental clarity. She may be encouraging you to spend beyond your means, question your goals, or feel guilty for your own success. She might call it advice. But it's manipulation, and if you don't recognize it, it can become a cage that looks like friendship, or even love. But here's the truth. You were never meant to shrink yourself to make someone else feel tall. You were never meant to apologize for your power. You were meant to lead with warmth, to love out loud, and to live like the sun without asking for permission. Before we move forward, allow me to take a moment to thank you deeply for being here. Every like, every comment, and every subscription connects you to this growing community we're building here at Eternal Mindfulness. Your presence doesn't just support this message, it amplifies it. And I promise you, Leo, what the universe is about to reveal is bigger than you can imagine. Now tell me in the comments, have you been feeling this shift? Do you feel like someone's been subtly undermining your energy or your success? If so, drop a quick "I see it now" in the comments below. That's your first step in reclaiming your light. Let's dive in. Leo, your energy has always been one of fire, brilliance, and unmistakable presence, the kind that fills every room you enter without needing to speak a word. But when the Strength card appears reversed in your reading, especially beside the Devil, something far more subtle and serious is being revealed. It's a message not just about what's happening to you, but about what you're allowing to happen within yourself. The Devil is not always an external enemy. It often represents a pattern that has slowly infiltrated your choices, your beliefs, your relationships. It's the seductive voice that says, maybe I should stay quiet so they feel comfortable, or, if I adjust a little, they'll accept me more. It wears the face of false love, masked as protection, masked as guidance. But at its core, it's about control and the willingness to trade your light for peace, your truth for belonging. When strength is reversed next to this card, it tells me you're not losing your power, you're handing it away, bit by bit, in the name of harmony. And not because you're weak, but because you once believed that love required you to shrink. Astrologically, this is amplified by the current retrograde motion of Saturn shadowing your ruling planet, the Sun. Saturn in its backward dance doesn't seek to punish, it seeks to slow you down, to force you to see clearly what structures in your life no longer support your true self. When it casts its weight over the Leo Sun, you may feel caged, limited, or even muted in ways you can't fully articulate. You may be craving freedom while simultaneously giving away the key to your own cage, perhaps to someone whose approval you've subconsciously placed above your own inner knowing. And here's where the number 6 enters, whispering its deeper meaning. In numerology, 6 is often seen as the number of harmony and responsibility, but also of choice. At this crossroads, you are being called to choose light or shadow, liberation or illusion, authenticity or approval. The most important truth is this: no one outside of you has the right to define your worth or your direction. If someone makes you feel like your power is too much, it only means they were never meant to hold space for it. There is a quiet lesson here that echoes across centuries of wisdom. When you compromise your essence to preserve a connection, the connection itself becomes a source of suffering. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip to keep it, the faster it slips away. Real connection flows. Real love makes space. It doesn't ask you to disappear in order to be held. So the deeper invitation here isn't just to see who or what is manipulating you, it's to examine where you've silenced your own voice to maintain the illusion of peace. Have you confused pleasing others with being loved? Have you mistaken tolerance for strength? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. Because in this exact moment, you are being offered the chance to turn inward, to reclaim the courage that was never gone, only quieted. And so, I ask you gently, how long has it been since you allowed yourself to shine without apology? Since you walked into a space without wondering if your presence was too much? The woman with the soft voice and sharp influence may have convinced you that your light should be dimmed to protect the feelings of others. But the truth is, your light is not a threat. It's a gift. And no external connection, no matter how familiar, how close, or how loving it seems, is worth sacrificing your clarity, your joy, or your freedom. This is not a call to war. It's a call to awareness. The moment you see clearly, you begin to loosen the grip of false loyalty. And when that happens, you don't need to push anyone away, they simply fall away, because your light no longer feeds their shadows. You are not here to be someone's source of control. You are here to remember the source within you and to live from it. Leo, there's a reason you've been feeling emotionally unsettled lately, as though someone's admiration for you carries a strange aftertaste like honey stirred with vinegar. The signals may be soft, subtle, almost easy to ignore, but that's precisely what makes them dangerous. When love disguises itself as criticism, when support comes laced with suggestion, when concern is used to shrink instead of uplift, it becomes harder to tell whether you're growing or quietly disappearing. And in your heart, you may already know someone close is dimming your light, not by force, but by persuasion. The astrological alignment between Venus and Pluto right now reflects a kind of emotional dynamic that plays out not through overt control, but through masked influence. Venus speaks of love, charm, connection. Pluto, on the other hand, governs power, secrets, and hidden motives. When they square off, it can bring about relationships where affection is laced with control, where intimacy feels more like a negotiation than a safe space. This is where we often find ourselves confused. She's only trying to help, you might think. She says she believes in me. But what she says is not always what she sows. Consider how she speaks to you. She may compliment your strength, only to follow it with a quiet suggestion that you're a bit much sometimes. She may applaud your ambition, then gently advise you to stay realistic. These aren't just words, they are psychological seeds. Over time, they take root in your self-perception, and without noticing, you begin pruning your own light. Not because you wanted to, but because you wanted peace. But peace that asks you to erase yourself is not peace, it's silence wearing a mask. You may have heard phrases like, "I just want you to be more grounded," or, "You're amazing, but maybe tone it down a little." At first, they seem harmless, even thoughtful. But if these comments consistently leave you second-guessing your instincts or holding back your joy, that's your inner compass nudging you. In such dynamics, success becomes something to hide, not celebrate. You might feel guilty for being proud, or selfish for chasing your own goals. That's not love. That's slow erosion. And when it happens over time, it becomes harder to see. Imagine yourself as a blazing fire, warm, confident, radiant. Now imagine someone placing a glass jar over that flame. It doesn't extinguish you instantly. But little by little, it suffocates your oxygen. Your light flickers. Your warmth pulls inward. You still exist, but you're no longer free. That is what these dynamics do to you, Leo. They don't destroy you. They contain you. From a higher wisdom perspective, the path toward awakening always begins in stillness, in seeing without judgment. You're not being asked to fight, accuse, or confront. You're being asked to recognize, to notice, to acknowledge how someone's presence affects your energy. You're being invited to hold up a mirror and ask, is this person helping me expand or training me to fold myself smaller? This awareness is not about blame. It's about liberation. And freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it arrives through the quiet decision to trust what you feel even if no one else sees it yet. This is how inner clarity begins. The moment you stop believing you need to be fixed in order to be loved, you become unshakable. And the people who only loved you for your willingness to shrink, they begin to fall away on their own. So ask yourself gently, with full honesty, who in your life makes you feel like you must be edited in order to be accepted? And why have you kept them close? When you see the answer, you'll also see the next step. The truth is, Leo, awareness is the first liberation. Once you begin to notice how your energy responds to someone, not their words, not their promises, but how your body feels after an interaction, you start to see clearly. If every conversation with her leaves you second-guessing your choices, editing your excitement, or rationalizing away your discomfort, that's not chemistry. That's emotional erosion. And it doesn't happen overnight, it happens in micro moments. A tilted tone, a backhanded compliment, a silence that pressures you into compliance. That's why your awareness needs to become your practice. One of the most grounding tools you can begin using right now is emotional journaling. After every meaningful interaction with this person, write down exactly how you felt, not what was said, not what you're supposed to feel, but the truth. Did you feel seen or scanned? Uplifted or subtly disoriented? Clear or quietly ashamed? Don't judge the answers, observe them. This practice is not about blame. It's about clarity. And clarity will always lead you home to yourself. From here, begin asking the simplest question: does this connection energize me or deplete me? We often ignore this because we're taught to be loyal, to give people second chances, to not take things so personally. But energy doesn't lie. When someone truly respects your essence, you feel more like yourself around them, not less. They don't challenge you to be smaller in order to be loved. They expand the room you have to breathe. And those who consistently leave you drained are not your teachers, they're your signals. The next step is where many people hesitate: setting boundaries. Especially for Leo, who is naturally generous and courageous, the idea of saying enough can feel like betrayal. But boundaries are not walls, they're acts of clarity. The first time someone crosses your line, belittles your dream, mocks your enthusiasm, or questions your reality, you don't need to retaliate. You only need to name what's real. A simple, steady statement: that doesn't feel supportive to me, or I don't appreciate being spoken to like that, can shift the energy in powerful ways. You're not asking them to change, you're committing not to abandon yourself. What many forget is that every relationship is a mirror of the energy we carry within. According to the law of attraction, we don't just attract what we want, we attract what we believe we are worthy of. If you carry the internal frequency of "I need to be fixed," then the world will reflect back people who feel compelled to fix you, or worse, people who use that belief to control you. But when you shift into the vibration of "I am already whole," your external reality must adjust. The fixer either evolves or disappears. There's a teaching that says, suffering comes not from what others do to us, but from our inability to see clearly and respond wisely. You don't need revenge, you don't need loud exits, and you don't need anyone's permission. What you need is presence. The ability to pause. To breathe. To ask, is this moment honoring my truth, or pulling me into self-abandonment? When you make space for this pause, you reclaim the choice that manipulation tries to steal, the choice to respond from power, not pain. And I want to gently ask you something, Leo, because I know how deeply you care, how much you want to be loved in return for your light. Have you ever quietly made yourself smaller, just so someone else could feel more comfortable? If the answer is yes, then let this be the moment where you stop. Not because you're angry, but because you're done giving away what was never meant to be bargained: your brilliance. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to be more humble, more tame, more digestible. The only thing you need is to remember who you were before they convinced you to question it. Leo, you carry the kind of energy that doesn't whisper, it radiates. You walk into rooms with presence, and without even trying, you shift the atmosphere. That's the nature of your sign. Ruled by the sun, you are meant to shine, not because you need attention, but because light is your natural state. And yet, what often happens with those who shine effortlessly is that they become magnets, not just for admiration, but for projection. People are drawn to your warmth, but not all of them know how to hold it. Some want to contain it. Some want to compete with it. And some want to control it all under the disguise of love, advice, or care. For Leo women, this control often comes in the form of men who praise your beauty or passion, but soon follow it with subtle corrections. You'd be perfect if you wore less makeup. You're amazing, but don't be so emotional. These aren't just opinions, they are attempts to reshape you. And when they come from someone who seems to care, they're harder to detect. You may find yourself editing your expression just to keep things peaceful. But over time, this doesn't bring closeness. It brings distortion. For Leo men, it's often the so-called friends or co-workers who mask their jealousy with strategic advice. They downplay your wins, insert sarcasm when you're proud, or always seem to have a better version of your story. They may position themselves as allies, but their energy speaks of subtle competition. You may start to question if you're being arrogant, but that's exactly the confusion these patterns create. They don't want your fall, they want your light, dimmed enough to feel superior around it. Numerologically, the energy of the number 1 now calls to you not as a symbol of selfishness, but of sacred individuality. It reminds you that your truth isn't meant to be diluted just to keep others comfortable. There is a quiet teaching in this: no matter how close someone is to you, their discomfort with your fullness is not your burden to carry. You don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself. What you owe yourself is presence, honesty, and the willingness to remain rooted in who you are even when it rattles someone else's sense of security. In contemplative teachings, there is a story often told in silence, that even the most fragrant lotus will grow in muddy waters. But it never bends to the mud. It rises, again and again, fully itself untouched, even as it grows from difficulty. This is not about being untouchable. It's about being unwavering. And that's what your journey is asking of you now. You were never meant to negotiate your spirit just to make someone else feel more powerful. You were never meant to apologize for existing in full color. If your presence stirs discomfort in someone who prefers shadows, that's not your fault, that's their work. And if their love comes with requirements that ask you to become less alive, then what they're offering isn't love. It's dependence. So I invite you now to sit with this one question, not as judgment, but as inquiry. Have you ever shrunk just to make someone else feel bigger? Have you ever stayed quiet in your own life so someone else could feel like they were leading? If the answer is yes, let that awareness be your return. You don't need to seek revenge or prove anything. You only need to stop giving permission for your light to be hidden. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. And alignment means this: I am allowed to be fully myself, even if it makes someone else uncomfortable. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. And clarity is the first act of compassion both for yourself, and for those who may not be ready to meet you where you are. When it comes to protecting your energy, Leo, you don't need to build walls, you only need to become deeply familiar with your own center. The more clearly you can feel what's yours, the less likely you are to carry what belongs to others. And that begins not with dramatic action, but with quiet daily practice. One of the simplest yet most transformative tools is what I call light visualization, an energy exercise where, each morning, you close your eyes for just a few moments and picture a soft, golden light expanding around your body. Not armor, not defense, simply illumination. This light doesn't push others away. It simply keeps you from absorbing what you were never meant to carry. This golden glow represents more than protection, it is a reminder of your own worth. Each time you imagine this radiant field, you're affirming, I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to be sovereign. And that sense of inner safety ripples out. When you start your day from that kind of clarity, it becomes harder for manipulative dynamics to find a place to land. Words that once pierced begin to bounce. Guilt starts to lose its grip. You become someone who responds, not someone who absorbs. On a physical level, there are also things you can do to support your clarity and intuitive strength. Adding more magnesium and vitamin B12 to your diet can nourish the nervous system, the part of you that picks up on subtle energies before your mind can make sense of them. When your system is depleted, it's easier to confuse someone else's stress, fear, or frustration as your own. But when your body is grounded and nourished, it becomes a clearer vessel able to detect what's off without identifying with it. Movement, too, plays a vital role in how you hold and project your energy. If you've been feeling emotionally drained or self-conscious lately, consider incorporating movement that reclaims space not just physically, but energetically. Warrior poses in yoga, for example, help restore your connection to personal strength. Free-form dance allows the body to express truth beyond language. Even a daily walk with conscious breath can remind you, I am still here. I belong. These aren't just fitness practices, they are acts of coming back to yourself. Colors, though often overlooked, also influence our field. During this week in particular, I invite you to consciously wear or surround yourself with shades of orange-gold tones that match your solar nature and reinforce a sense of inner fire. These colors stimulate vitality, creativity, and confidence. On the other hand, be mindful of overexposure to grays, especially in spaces where you're already emotionally unsure. Gray, while neutral, can sometimes dull the inner spark if worn too often during periods of self-doubt. At the heart of all these practices is one quiet truth: self-love is not indulgence. It is protection. When you treat yourself with daily reverence through food, through breath, through light, through movement, you slowly build a field of trust within yourself. And the stronger that field becomes, the harder it is for anyone to rewrite your story. You don't need to fight to keep your energy intact. You just need to return to it. And as you do, the people who once confused your power with threat will either step aside or transform, because your clarity leaves no room for manipulation to take root. Now I ask you, Leo, with an open heart, are you ready to protect your light, not out of fear, but out of deep respect for who you are? If so, write in the comments below, I choose to protect my light. Let it be your vow. Let it be your reminder. Let it echo not just here, but across every space you enter moving forward. Leo, if you've made it here, if you've stayed through every moment of this journey, from the first quiet warning to the deep recognition of patterns that no longer serve you, to the powerful tools that bring your light back home, then know this: something within you has already shifted. You're not the same person you were when you clicked on this video. Something subtle but irreversible has awakened, a soft but certain remembering that you were never meant to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. You were born to stand tall, to speak with clarity, to shine unapologetically. What we uncovered together wasn't just about identifying a woman who dims your spirit. It was about learning how to recognize the quiet erosion of your joy, the subtle compromises you've made, and the way you've sometimes molded yourself just to be accepted. It was about reclaiming the part of you that knows you're already enough, not in the future, not when you're fixed, not when they finally approve, but now. Just as you are. You were not born to fit into someone else's frame. You were born to become the light that shapes its own space. And that light, Leo, is not loud because it needs validation, it's loud because truth has its own volume. Your brilliance isn't a threat. It's a mirror. And if someone feels small in your presence, that's not a sign for you to dim down. That's an invitation for them to rise up. So here's what I want to ask you, in the quietest corners of your life, where have you been shrinking to be loved? And more importantly, what would happen if you stopped? What if, starting today, you decided to stop editing your excitement? What if you stopped explaining your dreams to people who only see limitations? What if you stopped apologizing for your intensity, your laughter, your hunger for more? What if the only approval you ever needed was already inside you? Let this be your new practice. Each time you feel the impulse to play small, pause. Breathe. Then ask yourself, am I doing this to protect my light, or to protect someone else's discomfort with it? Because you, Leo, are not too much. You are exactly what you were meant to be. And your fire is sacred. It doesn't need permission. It only needs to be remembered. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to affirm it aloud or silently, and, if you feel called, write in the comments, I will not shrink for love. Let your voice be a ripple in this space, so others like you can find the courage to speak their truth too. And from my heart to yours, thank you truly for being here. For trusting this space, for giving your time and your openness to this message. Every like, every comment, every moment you share with this community fuels the work we do here at Eternal Mindfulness. It reminds us that truth still has a place in this world and that you are not alone in your awakening. So if this journey moved something in you even just a little, I invite you to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness so we can continue walking this path together. And now, as we close, I leave you with just one final question, one you don't need to answer right away, but one that may echo in you long after this ends. Will you walk into your future like a dimmed light waiting for permission, or like a blazing fire that no longer asks?